Here I'm in downtown Chicago. The Bible says each to their own. It does. That you have your burdens and you must overcome them. I did not choose to be born in the United States. I did not choose to be born to two parents who were alcoholics. I did not choose to be born in massive poverty. I did not choose to be born with dyslexia or speech impediment or other things. This is what was my burden. I didn't choose it. So I don't give a fuck if you're born in Pakistan or India or wherever. That's your burden. Each to their own. And now that we have these huge percentages of minorities, even the small groups like Native Americans, it's still 10 million people. You would say Arabs are the smallest, but it's still 3 million people. So no more fucking affirmative action. Either you cut it or you fucking don't. That's it. Either you make the grade or you don't make the grade. And people know why they're getting hired and why they're not getting hired. And say you grow up Asian, and I want to know I'm doing you like we do in financial services. We look at your network. Okay, you have a lot of connections to Asian people. Well, we're trying to penetrate that market. That's a reason I would hire you. Or we're trying to penetrate the Hispanic market. And you could be a white person, like the guy who did the club. The black guy, white guy, he was the biggest club promoter in the black community. He was a bald, heavier white guy. He knew shitloads of black people, more than any other black person. But again, you hire them because you're trying to penetrate that market. So they're your sales force into that market. And so when we do things like I was looking to bring Annabelle on. Why? She's Asian, but not because she was Asian. Because she fit in with me and David. Besides having a massive crush on her, that had nothing to do with it. Her mother was a banker. David's a banker. It would deepen our banking ties. She knew all of my friends, from Joe Perillo to many others. And so the synergy, she would have helped me synergize the market, where I would have had my relationship that was positive, and she had a positive relationship with them. So she had lots of mixed relationships that happened to be like mine that crossed over, and together we were very strong. And she would have helped make David stronger with her mother being in banking for years. And so we could have deepened our banking connections. So, yeah, I was hiring her for her connections. Or would have hired her for her connections. That's what mattered. I wouldn't have brought her on for any other reason. You can date somebody but not hire them. It's like my ex Jennifer Kim. I would hire her not because to date her, because I know she's awesome at what she does. So I would have no problem hiring her because she's exceptional at what she does. And so it has nothing to do with sex. It has everything to do with strategic placement. So it's outside of that. So you have to understand, sometimes it mixes, like Annabella. I have a big crush on her, I hire her, but would it work if we dated? That's a different thing. And that's where people mix it up. And you watch the profits. Sometimes it works. Other times it's better you work in different fields. Truly. Sometimes it's better to hire somebody outside, meaning date somebody outside. Because working within causes some serious problems. And you have to understand that sometimes it's better to be somebody who's in a non-related industry, and you can talk and collaborate at home and help each other out, but you don't work together well. And I've learned that with certain people, that I realized that being friends with them was one, but trying to work with them, it fucking didn't work. Things were not well. But when we separated again, working, then we could be friends again. But you have to understand if you're going to get into this, do you work well? And somebody sometimes, like Asha, her and her husband were moving down that path, and they decided to go to different firms. He went to work for a Jewish charity in fundraising. She went to work for another firm in financial advising, but they couldn't be together. So they realized, we can't stay here. If we're going to move down this road and be together, we got to divide. And so they divided, and that made the relationship work. So it's a different track. So if you're going to do this, then sometimes you got to realize, well, we can't be here together anymore. And they both left, but sometimes only one needs to leave. But again, this needs to happen. And you have to understand this. It's like my brother-in-law, when he got in business with Michael and Billy, and the fathers, his father and his relatives, his cousins, got along perfectly. But when it came down to the kids, it didn't work out. And he ended up buying them out and owning the business to himself. So 2 of them he had to buy out. One of them, Mark, he died, but they worked together very well, but they didn't have, and where Waltz Brothers went wrong, Mark was an incredible engineer. He went to the Ivy Leagues, and he was a very high-end engineer, but because Waltz Brothers didn't do evaluations of him and his heart, he died early, and it left a huge gap. Waltz Brothers would have been much greater if Mark lived, and they caught his heart issue very early, and he continued to live on. They would have had an incredible senior engineer in Mark. If he was alive today, that company would have been way better off. And Mark was highly spiritual. Mark was Larry's mentor, my brother-in-law's mentor, and he used to spiritually mentor him. And Mark was a very devout, highly ethical Christian. And it went into his engineering. He was a very good engineer. He very much was a very hard, diligent Christian, and it showed in his product, what he produced. And by them not taking care of him and setting up the health plan correctly and him premature dying really put the firm into a big hard place for a decade or so without his capabilities. So one of the relatives, he got along perfectly, but the two other relatives, not so. And so when you realize this, you're doing these things, and just because one generation works well together doesn't mean the next generation is going to work well together. And I see that with my nephews and that, my nieces and nephews, but basically how the synergy isn't there. And it needs to be there, but it's not quite there. And things don't tend to work out well then in the long term. Either you're going to figure out what the bumps are and address them immediately, but the longer you leave things linger, the worse they get. Not the better. All that baggage builds up. And so when people get over things, a little bump in the road, when things go wrong, people don't bring it really up. But if you have several bumps in the road and you let things linger, then every time you reset, they're going to bring that up. And I've watched it with recovering alcoholics and that they recover and something goes wrong, meaning not drinking again, but something goes wrong, and they bring it up. When you were blank blank and you did this and they bring it up because they want to hurt them, and they have a lot of baggage they can bring up to stick it to them. So sometimes, and that's why I tell you, nipping in the bud is better than letting it go for you and them. It lets you put it behind you easier. But if you let things continue on, things fester and they get worse and worse. And if things go wrong, you go right back to the bad things really quick. I mean, truly, it's like the War of the Roses. You plummet into them. So, again, you have to address issues and out them, and the Bible tells you that by self-reflection and being honest and getting them out there and moving beyond them. So, again, you have to do these things correctly. And that's why people think, oh, I'm just going to let it go. Well, how many years do you want your kid to be picked on? Truly. How many years do you want your kid to be picked on? As an example, you're just going to let it... Well, it's not going away until you address the issue. And the funny thing is, I found the hardest issue is to make them change. The easier issue is to cut their hair or go to a speech coach and fix the speech problem. I had to. So it's easier to address it that way, so you're not fighting uphill, and then they have parents and you're being, that's an unreasonable request, and and that's what I go with Bruce Lee. And he said, okay, I'm not going to fight Hollywood. I'm going over here. I'm going to produce something high quality, and then I'm going to go back to Hollywood, and they're going to see me as a leading man. And that's what he did. But he understood that bucking the system wasn't the way to change things. Going out and showing the system that you're priceless to the system is the way to change things. So that's what they don't understand. And that's what Jesus talks about, turning the other cheek. But everybody thinks it's about, taking the high road. Bruce Lee didn't take the high road. He worked smarter. And he said, no, I know exactly how I'll do this, and they'll be begging for me to come back. And that's exactly what happened. And if he didn't die early, which that was incredibly tragic, and his son's death, Brandon, was unbelievably tragic. I think about it, it makes me cry. He had a promising career too. And it's just unbelievable. But his father, he established it for his son. He opened up where an Asian man could be the leading person. And that opened it up to Jackie Chan. And it opened it up to Jet Li and many other Asian male actors being these immense action heroes in the United States. And yeah, Chuck Norris did. And then Steven Seagal. But Bruce Lee set it up for all of them. Truly, I used to watch on Sundays, they had Chop Suey Theater, and that was where they had all the kung fu movies and that, and they did the voiceovers. It was really bad voiceovers, but again, I used to watch all of them. And then there was Hong Kong Phooey, and Hong Kong Phooey was a super dog. Dog mean he was a dog, not hot dog, but a dog, like animal. He was a martial artist superhero. Now, he was kind of bumbling in that, and it made him funny, but he always, ended up on top, like, McCloud or any of them, or Jackie Chan. He was another Chinese guy, the detective, and he was the leading role, basically, this Chinese detective who was kind of underestimated. He was underestimated, and he always ended up getting his person. But that was very good. I grew up on all that. And then a lot of Japanese cartoons, Ultraman and many others as a little kid. And they were on TV here. But as I look back, Bruce Lee really opened it up for Asian males to be a leading man as an action hero. So in the martial arts, and that helped martial arts. And then there was Parker, who had a bunch of studios, which you don't hear his name much. I think it's Frank Parker. And he had a ton of martial arts studios in the United States. But again, martial arts expanded through the movies. And yes, you had the Guardian Angels and Curtis. They used martial arts. And that was part of the New York. And they were, using citizens' arrest and everything. Because, policing was horrible back then and very corrupt. So, anyways, it led into these positivities. So, again, you got Chicago MMA right here. And you can't see it quite, but let's take this out of here. And there you go. Let's go over here. Chicago MMA, mixed martial arts. And that was big because to do mixed martial arts, you have to learn, away from me, you have to learn different martial arts. So mixed martial arts helps them because they combine different forms of martial arts. But you have to get a license from Kung Fu, from Taekwondo and that, to use their proprietary martial arts techniques in mixed martial arts. So I don't agree the way Dana White and them do it. Any mixed martial artists, they have to license these from the Professional Boxing Association. Truly, these are their proprietary things that they make their money from, like wrestling and everything else. And so you have to license these things from them. And so they need to get paid for their intellectual properties. So you can't just say, I'm creating a mixed martial arts. If you use their forms, you got to pay them. So again, it goes to a royalty to the different martial arts that you're mixing into your format. So I don't know how that studio has licensing and what different types of martial arts they mix together. And you can mix a lot of arts, from boxing to wrestling to jiu-jitsu to judo. And so you can make different things. So think about jiu-jitsu. You, in your guard, you work from your back. Wrestling, you work from the top down. And then judo, you end up throwing. And jiu-jitsu has throws. And then you mix in punching. And maybe throw in Thai boxing. That throws a different form of punching, but kicking as well. And so you want them to build off of each other. So you can work on your back, you can work top down, you can work on your feet, you can hit with your fist, you can hit with your feet. And so it creates a nice, good morning, synchronicity. So anyways, but they need to pay for that intellectual property. And if they haven't patented their stuff, they should patent their stuff. And they need to do this. They have to form an association. So there has to be that International Kung Fu Association. So when people use it in different countries, a royalty goes to the International Association of Kung Fu Schools. So we need to work this out going forward so people can get paid for their wares properly. And so no more, you can just take it. That makes people be discerning and respect things and treat things with dignity and respect. That's how they did the futures. The future market for rice. So people would trade off and use other things besides rice when rice prices got too high. So they always had rice, some rice. They just didn't eat too much rice. And so that's how futures started. And it was in Japan. The futures market started in Japan. And it is a commodity. And it is commodity futures. But again, engineering this, we need to build out the forward market. That's the 1 to 5 year market. Futures go for a year. Forwards go after that. And we need to build out a official forwards exchange where you can predict something out 5 years, because they already have this. You have 1 year treasuries, 5 year treasuries, 10 year treasuries, 30 year treasuries. I don't know if there's a 20 year anymore, or if there's ever been a 20 year, but I think there's 15. But the whole point is you can build out from the futures to the forward market now. and building out the exchanges so people can hedge better, and they can do a forward position, which usually creates synthetics, and it's not very liquid. But if you make a formal exchange for forwards, then that opens a new market, and Chicago should be looking to open up a forward market. And so this is what predictability does. It allows you to go longer out on the curve, and this allows the forward market to be there now that couldn't be there before. Too risky. The variables swung too much. Now you can go out and create forward markets, and they can open up in the futures exchange. Next to it is the forward exchange. So now you have a new exchange opening, and then obviously swaps. And so then that means you can get options on forward, and now you have new options, and you can get options on swaps, and you have more variability in how you go about your hedging. And this is good because it spreads it out, and you don't get concentrated risk, and you get more specific hedging instead of general hedging, and it builds out the exchanges, and Illinois can build out their exchanges, and that creates more jobs. So I don't get it. And we're in a labor shortage, so the stuff happening with black people, you can't have. That's why I'm glad we got rid of Karen Lewis. I was just looking at all the great inflation, and it's unbelievable. All the fluff in the market is unbelievable. So calculating out, what was it? In 10 years, that the fluff in the resume market, because people claim they perform more than they did. Do you know people get overpaid? Over 10 years, $7.55 trillion. It is a $600 billion loss every year by people overstating their credentials, lying. It costs the global economy $600 billion. Over 10 years, $7.55 trillion. So that means it said it came out to every man, woman, and child on earth is like giving them $900. Every human alive, giving them basically $1,000. That's how much fluff is in the system, with people lying about their credentials, about what they can and can't do. And because of AI in that, people are more fluffing their resumes. Unlike my resume is absolutely true. These people overstate their credentials, and I've watched it, and the calculation in financial service and across the board is unfreaking believable. They said in the educational market, this is separate, the 7.55 is outside the educational market. They said $4.7 trillion, and I'll post it, in the educational market. Fluff. By people inflating people's grades and capabilities. $4.77 trillion. So you add that together, how much is that? About $12 trillion in fucking lies. That people are overpaying and under-delivering. And you think humans are so great. God looks at this, and it is disgusting. lying, filthy pieces of fucking shit. It's unbelievable. And this is why we have so many accidents and everything else, meaning on jobs and everything else. People lie about their capabilities, what they've done, where they've been. It's unbelievable. And then teachers padding grades and giving students grades they don't deserve and academic cheating. It's unbelievable. And so I'll put it all out on Tumblr and my thing to solve it. But that could bring back, just in that, the fluff, another $12 trillion to the global economy. And what will happen is people will have to get the credentials and they will have to prove that they have the capabilities they say they have. No more lying, no more fucking faking. You think it's a good thing. God thinks it shouldn't exist. The truth and only the fucking truth. And so you're thinking it's a good thing. Well, it's not your $12 trillion, right? But it is. It goes into your reduced wages, into your reduced bonus, into your reduced stock market returns, into your higher insurance cost. Oh, it's eating you up all over the place. You just don't know it. I used to have this conversation with my friend Pete. All the hidden costs that you pay for that you don't know you're paying for. It's robbing you unbelievably. And there's no one doing anything about it. Truly. And so, think about it. If you could return $12 trillion back to the market, the upside potential for things is unbelievable. Getting the scum, filthy, lying, cheating, fucking pieces of shit out of the market. Either you are who you are, and we pay you fairly. We don't overpay you, we don't underpay you. We pay you exactly what the fuck you deserve, and not a penny more. And that's what the Bible says. A fair day's labor for a fair day's pay. And if you're not doing a fair day's labor, the Bible considers you a thief. And if you're taking one more penny than you deserve, the Bible considers you a thief. So, make no mistake about that. Nothing given, everything earned. But people don't understand this. And they think it's A-OK. And the crimes that are going on, and people think they're going to heaven. It's a joke. It's truly a joke. They're not going to heaven. All these black people I see, they're going to burn in hell, and I'm going to piss on them when I'm in heaven. They've had every opportunity in the world. I laid it all out. All the black-owned dorms, the affirmative action, this and that, the housing process. Give them this, give them that, give them this. It's a fucking joke. So either you start performing or you're gone. We can't rely on a system where people lie about their shit. It's unbelievable. I'm sick and tired of it. I've been burned by it my whole life. And I have. People lying about what they're doing in financial services. I didn't get business because other people lied. And then I had people like this Hispanic guy I was going to do life insurance for. he had hepatitis. And now he got it cleared up. But this insurance agent who was female, who was Hispanic, was going to lie on the insurance form. She was an agent. And he decided to go with her. And I said, if they find out you're lying, they're not going to pay out the death claim. And that she's hoping that he gets through the 2-year period of contestability, and then the insurance company gets fucked. So all those people that are lying about things, they wait out the contestability period for insurance. My brother died, and they gave back his premiums and didn't pay out the policy because they said he made a mistake or didn't state something accurately. He died within the 2-year contestability. His wife, Pam, I would bring her, got a check. Here's all the return premium, not the death benefit, because he made an incorrect statement. And rightfully so then, because he should have been paying more, and that's insurance fraud. And so you don't understand all these life policies that these people write and put in place, and then the insurance gets stuck with all these fraudulent actors. And do you know how many billions of dollars that is? Because they can't verify certain things about them. So work in my industry and you get to learn how much fucking fluff there is and fraud there is. I hate these people. My brother's wife, when he died, got his premiums returned. But these fraudsters, they get big death benefits. So it's amazing how all these people get these big settlements. And I see Morgan & Morgan for the people, big settlements. And then I see these people sitting on public property loitering, and I don't know why the cops don't put them in fucking jail. Nigger! So I don't get it. And I'm suffering greater than these motherfuckers. And I worked for all these charities since I've been a kid. And I'm suffering my ass off. And I gave them a chance. No more chance. I want them put in jail. If they don't change, they need to be forced to. Sticking the fucking screws to them. It's a fucking joke. And they constantly play on this. They made my life miserable, all the black porters at Baja, until Kenny fired them all. They stole, they lied, they underperformed. And I ended up doing shitloads of their work. And then I tried to implement a bonus plan, which I did, and they got bonused out all the time, thinking I could change their attitude. I showed them their job description. I explained their job description. And remember, Kenny ran the porters. I didn't run them. My department was the door, and I ended up running the door, the wait staff, the bartenders, the porters, the barbacks, because I was working with a bunch of alcoholics that were drinking on the job. My GM doing coke and stealing all these, and I get stuck doing everybody's work. That's why Baja failed after they got rid of me. But they made my life a living hell. And I implemented a $5 thing, and I got kickback from the bartenders and cocktails that they didn't want, but they had to give it to me. So every night they got hundreds of dollars in cash besides their pay. And they still disrespected me. And that's what happened in this second breakdown. Black people still disrespect me. They beat me and spit on me and disgrace me. And they still get away with it. So I don't get it. This is going back decades, and I turned the other cheek with the guns and everything else. And I turned the other cheek. When are they going to get their fucking ass together? It's serious. It's a fucking joke. And I constantly get all this disrespect from everybody. And I look at the tens of trillions of dollars that their lies are costing us unfucking believably. They want all the money and don't want to do any of the fucking work. It doesn't work that way. Money isn't created with nothing. It's created by hard work. Blood, sweat, and tears. So, I don't get it. So, it's called a bubble in economics. Lies are called bubbles. So, I'm down here in Chinatown. At least they're repaving the street. But the funny thing is, they didn't even out the underpavement. So when they put on the asphalt above, is it going to be all bumpy and rough too? And you don't get a nice, smooth street? And that means the asphalt breaks up and everything. Truly. When they don't smooth out the underpavement, they're supposed to address the issues. So the pavement above it is very smooth. And when it's smooth and it flows correctly, you don't get the breaking and cracks and fractures. It moves together. The bumps causes it to move separately. So the more waves in the pavement or the concrete, truly, the more it causes it to buckle. So the city streets don't last as long. So you get all these broken up everything. So things need to flow like water together. And if they don't, well, then you get the cracking and buckling and everything else that happens with it. Because they become opposing forces. And they're constantly at fight against themselves. Instead of working together, they're working against each other in that scenario, causing destruction. So the city has to pony up more and more money. So anyways, I'm down here, went through Chinatown, driving around Chicago, and I get sick and tired of seeing the homeless people. All those years with Pacific Gardens and PADS and Urban Ministry and many others, why don't they get shuttles like we had at PADS? Every night we picked up the homeless people on the street from Waukegan. So I worked, not only Chicago, I worked with a bunch of homeless people in Waukegan. So, and the funny thing is, that happened to be lots of black people in Waukegan. But the thing that was missing in it, minimal Hispanics, very minimal whites, truly, and zero Asians. So again, but here in Chicago, then you go up to Waukegan. And again, what the F? So I don't get it. And that's all because of their leadership. Shitty leadership. And that's why I like Karen Lewis, who was fluffing the grades. And when those kids got out, they didn't have the skill base. And this is why they do very poor in the workplace. Because they did grade inflation and they passed them instead of holding them back or giving them after-school matters, which I did now with blacks and Hispanics in East Chicago. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream after-school matters in East Chicago, working with Hispanics and blacks, trying to get them up to speed. So, you know, and then my ex started volunteering at an all-black school, then Mercy Home for the boys. She's Asian, to bring them up to speed. And then my partner, him and his wife used to volunteer and help Hispanics, English as a second language, trying to get them up to speed. And then they did all kinds of things in the black community near Oak Park. But I did too. I was with an Asian church, Lakeview, and every year we went out to the black community and I gave them shitloads of school supplies for all these black kids from our church all the way in Northbrook. And I would go to a wholesaler that was in Chicago and I could get large quantities of school supplies for cheap. And we would there. And then I helped another black lady set up a charity in Inglewood addressing issues in Inglewood. And I had a law firm who was white. He would work with me because I was part of the small business advocacy. He did all the structure for the charity. And he tried to back out a little bit because it got a little bit more work than he thought. And I said, you can't back out. You honor your promise. And he finished doing all their legal work to set up their charity for Inglewood. And again, that was one of my black clients who wanted to improve things. Then I was with another group who wanted to set up charter schools, and I was part of that in Lake Forest. I brought Jen to that meeting. Again, to compete against the public schools in black communities. And they were going to fund the charter school and open it up in black communities. Well, one of the things they could have done, instead of that, they could have revitalized the Christian schools in black communities that were closing down, the private Christian schools. But again, I'm with all these groups all over the place, working on all these different issues. It's amazing on how many different issues I was working with, trying to get things started. So it wasn't just the black community here, the black, Hispanic, you name it. The disability community, truly working with the Lighthouse for the Blind, all these institutions, trying to get them all up and running so they can live the life God gave them. A full life. A life that flourishes. A life, truly, they should have an opportunity to have. That's why I do it. because I believe in what the Bible says. But you seem to want to take that life away from me, the life I should have, and giving me something I shouldn't have. And I fought for the life they should have an opportunity to have. But I worked hard for a better life. So, Old St. Mary's, Easter blessings. What are they doing for the community? And I live right over here with Jen, and I never got anything from Old St. Mary's. Not one thing, not one flyer say, come for Easter. Even if you're not with us, think about visiting and coming for Easter. And what happens? You come for Easter and you donate. I would have. I've donated to a lot of churches I wasn't a member of. So I don't know what they do in this community, but all these churches say, oh, we have a hard time finding congregation. Well, Google and all those programs give you an able for churches to do marketing into the community. It's just like any other organization. It needs to market. It needs to make people aware. And sending them something like, okay, Old St. Mary's. Here, I'll show you where I lived. Right down here. And Old St. Mary's say, oh, we have summer camp coming up for kids. Truly, we have summer camp. Like, oh, Crispy's wife. I forget her name. Damn it. But anyways, she did youth ministry. I had youth ministry. I was part of a youth ministry groups with many youth ministry pastors in that. And they could have some of Bible, you know. And Bible doesn't mean you just stay there. They can go explore and do field trips. Truly. They can do little field trips. Like they can see each other's. Like Old St. Mary's can go down to St. Pat's. And, you know, you do things, exchanges. And we're going to have a field trip. And we're going to bring the kids over and talk about something related to Old St. Pat's. But they can take field trips. They can go into the park and do nature trips and talk about Genesis. Truly, how God created the world. And bring them out to the nature, the birds and the bees and the grass and the trees and the water. And you understand this. And so they can explain Genesis by bringing them to nature. So think about how to make the Bible tactile. So again, they didn't send anything to us. I went to Catholic college, Benedictine. So there's 1515 South Prairie where I used to live. And I like living there. And this is Mark Twain Park right here. Again, this is a park. It's not private. So they can come over here from the church, from Old St. Mary's. It's a little walk, and they can play out on the swings and that for, you know, summer Bible study. You know, so Bible camp during the summer. And they can hook up with the Boys and Girls Clubs and everything else. It can be an all-day thing where they do Bible camp in the morning and Boys and Girls Club in the afternoon. And then they go up to New Life in the evening. Truly, it can go from early morning to late evening, say 7 o'clock or something like that. And the kids come back home, and the parents don't have to worry about summer school, right? Meaning about their kids during the summer. they work with the exchange and they go to Bible school, and then they hand them off to the Boys and Girls Club or Boy Scouts or whatever, and then they go to, after school matters in the summer for, get ahead tutoring. Just because school ends, they can do all kinds of stuff. Kids that want to do advanced placement, kids that want to catch up, and so they can go to after school matters for a couple hours in the evening. And so they're going to school in the summer trying to get ahead. So they get camp in the morning, Bible, and, Boys and Girls Club, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever it may be, and then after school matters for a couple hours, and then they go home. So they can get ahead. So those that are behind catch up, and those that are ahead get further ahead. So they can take AP courses, advanced placement courses. So you do that in underperforming communities like Hispanics and black communities, and poor, like Patrick Henry, they have after school matters for those kids. Poor white communities, you go to the underserved and you start advancing them. As a kid, I grew up in Deerfield, and all these people are going to summer camp here and summer camp there. Well, I was taking care of babies and everything. There was no summer camp. They went to summer wrestling camp at Northwestern. I wanted to go to wrestling camp at Northwestern. Never had this. Other people went to football camps and other camps. I didn't do any of that. I was busy taking care of babies. So, again, I did play for 2 years summer baseball, outside of high school baseball. I played summer baseball freshman and sophomore year. But I didn't go to camp or anything, and in the evening after the games and that, I had to take care of kids. So again, my time was taking care of everybody else. So again, why should I come around Chicago and see any bum at all? It just shows you how shitty the city is. It's disgusting. Where I go to LA, they're getting rid of them. I go to New York, they're getting rid of all of them. Through how? Job opportunities, placement services, and everything else. Why don't they work with placement services? There's day labor and everything else. So again, there's lots of opportunity. And day labor can work from home too, So I don't get it. They can work from home. So he can have a job in a wheelchair working from home. Give him a computer and a phone, he can work from home. So day labor doesn't only mean that. There's all kinds of gig stuff. Who was it? Had stuffing mail from home. I was going to do this. And you work stuffing envelopes. And they give you all these envelopes and, all these papers that need to be folded and stuffed. And so whatever it may be, stamping, like putting on stamps and, mailing them out. There's also list work where you go through these different lists that people can do from home, and you clean up the list, make sure the addresses are correct in that. So they go down these lists and make sure the business address, the business is active, the website's active, and they purify these different lists. They can do that from home. That's another job. I forget exactly who does that, but they hire these people to do these things, to clean up data, to, stuff envelopes. There's a lot of work from home that they can do. So I don't get it. So that means they get a lot of extra money into their pocket. And just to let you know, I'll tell you another thing. With the 401k's and that, and you can have group IRAs. If you don't want 401k's and simples and that, then you can just go to direct deposits into individual IRAs. And we were going to work with temporary services that it was mandatory that you had to set up an individual IRA, and then out of your paycheck, it would go automatically direct deposit. You have no choice. And part of the employment agreement is you put 10% right into the IRA. But you can mandate that with the 401k. Do you know that? I guess I can stop here and pick up something. But you can mandate that, make a 401k into a pension plan, or a simple through the employment agreement, where they sign on and they have to do this. They agree at the beginning of the employment. So it turns into a pension plan. So you don't have to have and put into place that big fiscal obligation. You can put in something simpler, a 401k, and then you mandate contributions. And you're allowed because they take the job and they approve it. If they don't approve it, then they don't get hired. And that's legal. So you can mandate it, go in, and if you don't want to set up that structure, then you just do the IRAs. And you can have a choice, a traditional or Roth, or go into both. 50% in the traditional, 50% in the Roth. And it comes right out from the payroll service, and we could work with the payroll service to do the direct deposits right in, but you have to set up the plan. So again, you can turn these into pension plans, but the business doesn't get the risk of the pension obligation. That's all driven by the investment, and they get financial literacy in that. You're not doing it for them. They got to sit down and go over what types of investments that they're going into and so on. And then they get the reports, and, it creates financial literacy. But it's mandatory they set up a retirement plan.